Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. I'm back. Good to see you. I'm out here in the good old deep green, and haven't really done a show in 2 days, I guess. But that's okay. It was rainy, rainy, rainy. I didn't feel like going out. The man cave when it rains that hard, it's like Noah's Ark. You got to put out little pots and pans to capture the water. It's what it is. Anyway, um, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to Dreamy Dreamland. Ah, Al Bob, your griot here to tell you a story. Don't believe a word I say. It's all for laughs and giggles. You know, all those millions of people dead in Africa, laughs and giggles. All those people in the strip, and all those other hundreds of places where Snidely Butler would say, war is a scam. It's a racket. It's all about power and money. And who's behind that curtain? Go read Mr. Butler's book. The most decorated soldier in World War One, Marine that was all over the world killing people, like when he was Spanish-American War and he was in the Philippines. We killed 1 million Filipinos there just for fun. What's her name? She giggles just like all those guys behind the curtain. They sound just like her. She's kind of what it is. And forget whatever politician you're rooting for, never gonna be following you. Go watch, good old my and mentor George Carland. We both went to the same PS and up there in Harlem on the west side. So here's this guy. I think you might find this fun.
This is one of those clips I want to inject right in my veins. So this is on Fox News. They're going to talk about Kamala versus Trump. And this is what happens when you trot out the old school conservatives, the ones who are obsessed with civility and decorum, and the ones who are very elitist by their nature and are kind of like, I could call them Mitt Romney conservatives, I think is a fair way of describing them, right? Agree with Trump on policy virtually across the board. But what they don't like is all of his antics. They don't like, shooting from the hip in terms of strategy and questioning Kamala Harris's race and talking about crowd sizes and things of that nature. They find it embarrassing. They do. They look at that and they think it's humiliating. And this is beneath somebody who's running to be president of the United States. So they trot out this old carcass, Brit Hume, and this is a brutal dose of reality that he gives to Trump and Vance. Watch this.
Hey, so you heard me talking with Senator Vance there about where they are in the polls. He says they've got the message, they're going to win. Here's another Fox News poll we have out this week. How do you feel about how things are going in the country? 65% say they're dissatisfied. So, Britt, knowing that and knowing in this setup, Trump is the challenger, why is he not doing better?
Because he's Trump. I mean, the truth of the matter is...
And the show is over. Britt has dropped the mic.
You get down to it.
Oh, it was brutal. This poll would indicate that Trump should be doing better. Why is he not doing better? Because he's Trump. Oh, by the way, totally accurate. He nailed it.
Past 8 to 10 years have been about Donald Trump. Everything's been about Donald Trump. I don't think that the Democrats would have let Joe Biden get as far as he did if the party hadn't been confident that the Republicans were going to nominate Donald Trump again, which the Republicans did. The fact that Biden was doing even as well as he did until the very end is testament to the fact that Donald Trump, he has a very hard, solid base of support, but it never gets above about 40 to 45%, maybe a little more at best. So his weakness is the predicate for our politics going back three elections. He was able to surmount Hillary Clinton, a uniquely unpopular opponent, but he couldn't beat Biden.
And by the way, he lost the popular vote to Hillary, too. People forget that. Hillary won the popular vote by 3 million votes, right? So
I think a little bit
more.
Right.
He does have a hard cap. He does have a hard cap. And his point is, look, even against Joe Biden, he was winning points on average, maybe 4. He's like, Biden was as weak as we could. If Trump was a strong candidate, he would have been up like 12 points on Biden. He wasn't. Yeah, I think, for example, having over 80 criminal charges against you, being a convicted felon, being found liable for business fraud and insurance fraud and tax fraud and defamation as it pertains to a sexual assault. Yeah, that takes a political toll. That takes a political toll. All right, let's keep going.
You look at the losses in the midterms, or the disappointing results in the midterms. It's all about one thing. It's about that Donald Trump, no matter how enthusiastic his supporters are, nonetheless, is not a majority candidate. He might win, but he's not a majority candidate.
Well, and Carl, you heard that I read part of your piece with Senator Vance, and he says the president is listening to everyone. They're willing to take input. Do you think that's true of this campaign? And do you think they're going to have a shakeup in leadership in the campaign?
Well, first of all, he does listen to a lot of people. But first he listens to, and we see it in these rallies, which are a particularly undisciplined form of communications. Look, think about it. 2/3 of the American people think we're going in the wrong direction. He leads on the issue of who's better on the economy, who's better on inflation, who's better on immigration. That's all good numbers for him. And yet this race today, he's behind. And why is he behind? Because he is making this race about things other than the three big issues in this campaign: the economy, inflation, and immigration. And, he can go out and touch on those things, but he will say something incendiary or something will pop up dismissing Medal of Honor winners, saying the economy is not a major issue. He obscures his message because he's fundamentally undisciplined. Having said that, this race is tight as a tick and will remain so. There has been great movement towards the Harris campaign between July 21st and today. But think about this. If you take the Real Clear Politics average of the battleground states, Trump leads in Nevada, North Carolina, and Georgia in the Real Clear Politics average. Harris leads in Arizona, Michigan, and Wisconsin. That leaves the race at 257 electoral votes for Trump, 262 for Harris, and the decision to be made in the state that is tied, Pennsylvania, with 19 electoral votes.
And who's leading Pennsylvania? Kamala by 3 or 4. Look, they're spitting, bro. And the Real Clear Politics average, so you all know, skews conservative because it has a bunch of junk polls in there that they use, whereas Nate Silver doesn't. But anyway, look, I'll just ask you, is Fox News going to go along with the inevitable stolen election claims that will come from Trump if he loses in 2024? I don't know the answer to that question. I genuinely don't know the answer to that question. I think it's basically a coin flip. I think it's 50-50. The reason I think they might not is because they got people like this on the network. And we already had lawsuits from Dominion, from Smartmatic, from all these voting machine companies. And they sued Fox News, Newsmax, One America News. And some of those stations had to come out and apologize, have to put a disclaimer every time Trump denies the election again on air. I could see perhaps they don't go along with the bullshit this time. But then again, you got all these hosts that are on the air that are totally fucking shameless. People like Jesse Waters, right? And he'll probably say whatever the fuck Trump wants him to say. And so, look, we're going to be right back. Time is a flat circle. We're going to be right back in 2020, post-Biden winning, where Trump's still denying it and trying to hang on to power. We're going to have a similar thing happen in 2024. And if Trump loses, which right now that's the path that they're on, is Trump losing. I don't know how it's going to go, but I'll tell you one thing. As I pointed out at the beginning, these old school conservatives, the Brit Hume types, they're sick of Trump, man. They are. Now, again, that's not to say they...
And that's not to say that they mean anything. Guys, no one talks about who's behind the curtain. Who's pulling the strings? People that you don't see. I mean, there isn't, Kamala and Trump. There's no difference between those guys. Well, maybe Donnie is a little batshit more than Kami, but Kami, she's, she is a genetic clone or something, or as my good friend DJ would say, a Stepford wife, right? So, well, the bottom line is, nothing is as it seems. Oh, there we go. Someone's coming in. Let's see what they say. And kind of this show, guys, is it's a chat, right? And I do have limited battery, so I probably have about 40 minutes. It does look like it might rain. And who is here? Oh, it's there. Hey, Rube. Let's see. Do you know who's pull the strings? Who pulls the strings? Okay. Yeah. You have to go back to Babylon, Mesopotamia, Egypt, and look at all of the mystery schools, right? And that's where Jesus came from. He's born in a manger, and the three wise men go looking for him, and they stop at the king, and the king goes, "Oh, who's? Oh, the Messiah. Oh, really? He's being born now. Oh, okay." So that guy tries to, he kills every male child, between then and 7 years. Probably a million male childs, right? So the angels tell Mary and Joseph, "Okay, you better hit the bricks," and they run off into Egypt. And Jesus gets schooled in all those mystery schools, right? And so the guy who does the Queen of Babylon, right? I mean, all of my faves, they have a point of view, right? And they kind of stick on that, and that's a good thing. Me, I'm like a shotgun, bang! I'm looking at everything. I'm trying to, bring the strings together to make, that tapestry, that picture. Anyway, so the real people, it's a mixture of dimensional creatures and aliens and all kinds, right? That's why I love Doctor Who, right? Because they're always mixing in every kind of creature that's screwed around with Earth, right? Cybermen and SpongeBob, and have you heard of the Seven Dwarves? Master Sorcerers, yes. And again, no one of these groups is the be end and end all, right? They what are the guys who were around before the Masons? That pretty much every mystery school is kind of part of, right? And people think they're a religion, but they're really not. They're an ancient motif. But again, you have to realize, look, our moon is the Death Star. It's an artificial satellite. In Antarctica, there's remains of Atlantis and Lemuria, right? And all up and through the mountains I'm in here, there are all of these dumbs from a billion years ago. Dumbs, deep underground military bases, not ours, but somebody else's, that, the powers that shouldn't be have dug up. Now, those powers that shouldn't be are old families, meaning you want to know fringes of this, go listen to JFK's last 5 speeches. And that's why he was whacked. Go look at DJ, dark journalist. His last Friday show was really an excellent one, right? Joseph P. Farrell was with them. They went into, basically cold fusion nuclear weapons, because back in the day when they invented the nuclear weapon, the hydrogen bomb nuclear weapon, fusion rather than fission, basically, and the fission one is the one that makes the nasty isotopes that cause fallout, right? But to turn that deuterium into the sun, you need a lot of pressure and a lot of heat. But they realized, this guy named Knuckles, Dr. Knuckles at Lawrence Livermore, if you looked him up, he realized that no, you don't need heat or even plasma to cause fusion. All you need is a frequency that compacts, that squeezes that material together, right? And Tesla did that. He developed a device that was about the size of a pack of cigarettes. I used to live in his laboratory. It was called Mohawk Electric, right? Right on the corner of, I think, Duane and Hudson, right where Duane Park is. And he was fooling around with his thing. He stuck it on an I-beam of the building. He turned it on, and it's like running on a 9-volt battery. It was like no juice at all. And where he was, he really didn't quite feel. He felt a little vibration, but as the space got further and further away, so they were building the Woolworth building, which got the nom de plume, the tallest building in the world, right? And people came running up because that building was like shaking, like it was about to fall down, because it was just steel at the time, right? And it's one of the first steel buildings, the first steel building, where everything was steel into the granite, and then they built the substructure, and then they hung like curtains the outside, and that was the Flatiron Building, right on I guess 16th Street, right where Union Square is. That's where the Flatiron Building. That was the first skyscraper. That was 20 stories tall. And then the real tallest building in the world was the World Building. So Tesla's fooling around with this thing, and it nearly causes that building to fall down. So that is the kind of stuff that Knuckles was playing around with. He was working at Lawrence Livermore, right? And then a few 10 years later, the guy Farnsworthy, the guy who invented television in America, right? Like the Germans had it, but it was kind of German clunkiness. But Farnsworthy made the real deal that Mr. Sarnoff of NBC basically made his empire on. That is the source of petroleum oil, right? It is the synovial fluid of the planet, right? It's like, there are all these different rings of material under our feet, and they're all kind of revolving in different directions, and that's how we kind of get gravity, or at least a port. Gravity is a multiplicity of things, right? And if you go, kind of have to go look at Einstein's equations to, because gravity is, nobody knows what it is, but it is a mixture of electromagnetic force, right? And it's also has a construct of time, right? And it also has a construct of mass. So you have all of these different materials that make cores of the Earth, and the center one is like really hot, and they're going in different directions, and so they're like a generator, basically. Well, they're physical things rubbing up against each other, so they need a lubrication. Lubricant, right? And the other thing is more water underground than there is above. And all the stuff that we drink, we don't just get it from a well that's, in the water table there. No, it's like percolating through the whole frigging planet. And it is being kind of based on the photonic energy of creation. That's what, certain people call Gaia, right? And again, Gaia is a lot more complicated than just, the goddess of, no. So Gaia is almost like AI, So whenever you start screwing with any of this, when you start fracking and doing all this crazy stuff that we're doing just to squeeze a little bit more of that, especially when we have ultimately, Tesla and these other guys basically, developed zero point energy, with wireless transmission of current. We don't need oil, but Mr. Globaloney uses oil, and also the exhibition and the taking of minerals to have power through war, and then through giving commodities a value above love's co-creation, right? So let's put the glasses on, see what you guys are saying. Let's see. What is the source of petroleum? So it says the synovial fluid of the planet. Okay, that's how I was just about to ask you to look into the dead internet theory, which involves the running rampant creating most of it content of the internet. Well, first of all, I have a sense that, so Elon Musk, all these guys, Elon Musk, micro penis boy, dead face boy, Mr. Um, I got what you want, and I'll get it to your house in 3 seconds. That guy, Amazon. You know why they call it Amazon? Because that was his idea. He was going to the Amazon, kill it, right? You need all that cardboard for all those boxes. So it's the Amazon. And don't believe a word I say, right? I'm like George Carlin. I'm just cracking jokes here. But it's all this stuff is in the internet, right? Itself. So basically what we're going to have. So anyway, Mr. Knuckles, right? And Tesla and Mr. Farnsworthy realize you don't need an atomic fusion. You don't need plasma. Lawrence Livermore is spending a zillion, gazillion, all of the electricity for a nanosecond to fire these lasers onto, deuterium and bingo. No, there are certain dielectrics that are like plastic and cardboard and a few other things. That's kind of what Farnsworthy used, and he made a fission reactor the size of a softball, right? And in the 70s, all of that information went from IT&T over to Lockheed Martian. That's what Captain Austin and Fitz call those guys. So they have all the technology. They've locked it all up because, see, if our government ran the research, they'd have to give us the information through the Freedom of Information Act. And that's the problem with Stephen Greer. He wants a disclosure. And he's trying to be the hero, and he's trying to go through those guys, and they just play him, right? Same with David Wilcox and that whole crew. And back in the 90s, I knew those guys, right? And they were all wanted to be heroes and cowboys and white hats and black hats, and it was like, please. And I was in Asheville when Stephen Greer was a emergency doctor there, right? So that's kind of where I ran into him first. And he's had his whole family. Did you ever see Steven Spielberg did a great TV show about being abducted, right? It was a series. I don't know if it ran a year or two, but Steven does a great job of it wasn't just Close Encounters, but he's given the green light to kind of give the public a little look behind the curtain. And there were a bunch of them. The guy, what's his name? The guy who did Terminator, that guy. And then he did Avatar, and he did a bunch of others that were really great, all those guys, and what's his name, who did Fringe, Bad Robot guy, Star Trek, rebirthing Star Trek. All those guys, especially in the film industry, are given information. George Lucas, same thing. He was given all this information, and they turn it into a story that they're like me. They are Ridley Scott. Yep. They're like Babylon Disclosure. Yep. Read my comments. I will. I think I did already. And whoever does comments, I want to thank you for commenting your comments, and keep doing it. A good job. Remember to push that subscribe button. Let's see how my battery is doing. I got about 20, 30 minutes more. So, pretty much everything. All the guys wealth in the world. No, it's like some guy who thinks he's rich because he has a big house and big fancy car and all his clothes and blah, blah, he goes to Europe, blah, 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 blah. But he doesn't have a credit card. He has a loan for his car and his house. He don't own a squat, Better that you not own anything. Like me, I don't own nothing, No, you did not try to focus on. Yeah. I'm like, like a cat with a string, But whenever you hear me say, and so it's like if you do watch these shows, you will realize that actually, no matter how far out Al goes, he does, if he's got enough time, brings it all the way around back, right? So, and see, I just said it. And so, what we are looking at here in the next 4 or so months, between now and February, between now and Valentine's Day, whatever that, 5 months, 6 months, what we're going to see is I'm giving 40%. If I was in Las Vegas, I would give these odds 40%, because I listened to what's his name? You like comments? Go see. Okay, when I'm figure out how to look at my comments and do that. Maybe it's my other little gizmo. What did I do with that? Oh, here it is. Let's see. It's a problem with being half blind. When I put the glasses on to read this stuff, then I can't see anything else. Let's see. Let's go up there. Let's go there. Keep going. Keep going. Hit this. Your channel. Okay, I'm going to do that. Whoops. So go there. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Your channel. Manage things. Okay, here we go. There's one that you guys left. So here's my lunch. What do you think? Pretty yummy, eh? This coffee is the best coffee. Hummus, falafel. Oh, yes. Lamb, potato stew, and rice. That was last week. That is, but I just got out of I can't always eat that food. It's 40 miles away. I end up spending $40 on lunch for myself, and then. But the guy who runs the place, I really like him. If I give him my last nickel, because he's got a bunch of kids, he's a great guy. The eye hospital. Yes, I went to the eye hospital, and then a week later, my buddy brought me there yesterday, and I got operated on, and so I can still see. Praise Jesus. Let's see. Let's go back to this. Okay, so here is one. Did you know? And I'm going to hit that. It's really will make interesting company. Comments. If you're interested, leave a comment. Let's see. 1890s, sure, but what about the mud flood and the annihilation of Tartaria? Yes, exactly. See, that's the other very interesting thing. Thanks for reminding me. Who said that? I think that Jamie might have said that. Who sent that? Read more. Yeah, it's Mr. Rubin. So, the orphan transit. So, a little bit after the Civil War, we have a Chicago burned Chicago burned twice. They call it the Windy City for a reason. First time it was like blowing up. It was a little town of maybe 300 or 400. Then because of railroad, and also, the canal, the Erie Canal, they could take things from the sea into Chicago, right? So that became a deal. And so Chicago grew from 300 or 400 to 300 or 400,000 people in less than 2 years. So everything was made out of wood. And yes, Mrs. McGillicuddy's cow might have kicked over that thing, and it was a really windy night, and everything took off. Second time around, no, was Chicago 30 years later after the Civil War, and we became a super industrial country, and all those steel mills were out there, and all those places that were manufacturing stuff out of that steel. There was a lot of money in Chicago. So, and still, it was a transportation hub. It was down river, kind of, by train to SIP. And so a little bit after Civil War, and things are, after a war, things go nuts. They just because the production for the war is mammoth, and then the war is over, the production is still there. And if you got a market and you got materials and you got the workers, that's why we had all this influx of white European trash to work in those factories. They were like cogs in a machine. Work them until they die, and that's why the unions came around. Anyway, so that's around then. And what occurs is Chicago. This is when the Chicago had the Great Chicago Fire, because the first one, when everything was wood, Chicago was just a boom town. There were a lot of boom towns, but when Chicago became Chicago and everything was steel and stone, what happened was an asteroid or a comet or something of that nature came zipping by and either smashed into that neck of the woods, or it just kind of got real close enough to cause the mud flood and obliterate Chicago like a nuclear weapon, right? And if you, the Herald Tribune, right, go online and look at the Herald Tribune. And there was a guy, oh, what is his name? He was the editor of like the New York Times and the New York Herald Tribune. That's the one you look for. New York Herald Tribune. That was my favorite paper. And it went out of business maybe in the 80s, but it had an amazing science section. And when they went out of the business, and they also had a great magazine section, and they also had a few other things, New York Times bought all that stuff up and kind of glommed it into its newspaper, especially the Sunday section. But the guy, oh, what was his name? Oh, it'll pop into my mind. But he had, and there still is a kind of society, the Fordian Society. That's his name, Fordar. And so the Fordian Society, you go online, look for that. Let's see what Mr. Google has about this. Come on. Uh, the Fordian Society. Yep, Fordian. Let's see, put my glasses on so I can see. Sigmund Freud. No, I'm sorry. Scientific Journal, Fordian Society. Policy Society, Oxford. No. See, I don't have any teeth, so I can't pronounce certain. How about you guys? See, I just have gums. I don't have teeth. Gums do pretty good. I can eat about 90% of everything. Old scientific journal coming out of the Herald Tribune, New York. It was published 1924 to 1966. Academic journal books and so forth material, published articles grounded in peer review research. New York Herald Tribune Archives. Well, I think I've given you enough little threads, rabbit holes to go look at. So anyway, this asteroid goes flying by, and this guy Fordar, he is not in Chicago itself, but he's in, like on the other side of the state. And not only does Chicago get obliterated, but other towns and other whole counties, and then the mud flood happens. Right? And documenting everything from the Herald Tribune or the thing that became the Herald Tribune. And Fortean. Try that again. Fortean, right? Not esoteric journal called the Fortean Society. Includes results, esoteric journals. Fortune Society. Yeah, here it is. Charles Fort, Fort. Yeah, Charles Fort, May, let's see, born 74, right? May 32. Let's see what it says about him. Charles Fort. Yeah, that's him. It's an American writer, researcher, was specialized in anomalous phenomena, right? Like that, anomalous phenomena. Fortean, Fortean, sometimes Forteana, use characterize various such phenomena. Fort's books sold well, are still in print. His work continues to inspire admirers and other researchers. Science fiction, right? So he, So let's see what Google says about. So go look up that guy and let's see what it says about the mud flood. Let's talk about the mud flood. I don't. Let's see, mud flood clears away all the ugly parts of modern history, like war, racism, slavery, and genocide. Let's see. Bizarre conspiracy of Tartarian and the mud flood. Tartarian, Tartaria. The video is about a bizarre conspiracy, Tartarian, the mud flood. The video looks at both sides. Mud flood hypothesis, the history of the mud flood. Let's see what they say. Oh, it's an Amazon book. Of course it is. Because on Kindle it's free. Hardcover, $15, paperback. So how to listen, download, blah blah blah. Yeah, The Last Wild Man. This guy doesn't that look like me? Kind of. Saint Nicholas. Oh, I'm his younger brother, Bob. Let's see, how we doing on the battery? This guy don't like to die. Nope, not in the red zone yet. Still got about 30%. So what do you guys know about the mud flood, right? And do you know about Mr. Ford? And what so here we are. We started out playing little things about Donald Trump, and I was listening to the Democrats, and like this phone is really good. I can record on this, and it shows not only the volume, but the frequency of a person's voice, which is quite interesting because I've been trained when you listen, like what do you call it? Lie detectors, right? So they take your blood pressure and your respiration and your sweating and the galvanic response. But the best way is your voice because it comes out in not only volume but frequency. What frequency it is, right? And so certain frequencies, oh, this guy's lying. Oh, this is tell the truth. So why people are drawn to Donald Trump is because he is a nihilist and he's a sociopath, and both of those talk to people in a way they could say the shittiest thing to you, and you'd still love them because they talk to you in a way that they make you feel like they're identifying with you, right? Whereas Cami and all those guys, no, there is phony as a $2 bill, and they were like going on and on and on about how. Joe is, he's a great man. 50 years he served his country. No, he lined his pockets. There isn't a single politician that's not lining. There isn't anyone. You read Why did Jesus throw the money changers out of the temple? It's the same guys, right? Anyway, so AA, what do you think about James Cameron? What do you think about his movies? He's always been ahead of the trend. He's always telling an interesting story. He's always pushing the technological thing, and he's doing a movie at a tenth of the budget of everybody else. And didn't he have something to do with Alien? Who did Alien? Was it Cameron? No. Or was it Whitley? Not quite sure. But anyway, those guys always push the envelope of the technology. When you look at Ford, who did all those cowboy movies, and everything's in black and white, and those vistas of the mountains and the desert photos. Ridley Scott did Alien. Okay, see, that's what I love about that guy, because he really gets an amazing film at a shoestring budget, and that's what art is about, right? And when I used to, I didn't do film, I did video. I had a TV show on Manhattan Cable called Potato Wolf, and it wasn't mine. There were 8 of us who were producers. We kind of came together and started a thing called Collaborative Artist Projects, Collab. And what's upsetting is I see loads of people. We never trademarked that, but people mock it off and use it for themselves. Anyway, so for a good 7 years, we had a TV show in Manhattan where it was must-see TV before NBC did, and we had 90 minutes, and it was going out cable system, right? And in New York City, if you're going to watch TV, you had to have cable, because otherwise, because of all the tall metal buildings, the TV waves went all over the place. So you had ghosts, and you couldn't see squat, right? So, but cable, crystal clear, looked great. So they had part of their licensing with the FCC. They had public access. Nobody used it. We said, hey, look. So we could go. They had a studio. They had all the hardware. And that's where we met Captain Louis, the great grandson of Mr. Sony. And he had a studio downtown on Varick Street and Reed, kind of near Chambers. And he had a little building, and it was just stuffed with all kinds of Sony cameras and this and that. And his grandfather was just sending him stuff over to play with to see how they could sell it to Americans. So he gave it to us to play with. And so we had a 90-minute show on Thursday, started around 9 o'clock, right? So it went from 9 to 10 to 10:30, right? And we would go out live, and then around midnight, they'd show it again, right? And then they kind of show it again every midnight. The first 2 years they did that. I don't know if they continue to do that, because there was nothing on that channel. So we had a show. I had this girlfriend who was a martial artist, and she was about 5'3" and had a build like Raquel Welch, and she was just the most fun, and she could kill you 20 different ways. And so she taught women martial arts for protection, right? And one time we were living in West Village, and we would walk over to 16th Street where the meat district was, and that's where my boss had Joshua Lightso and Pick Lights, Bob Goddard. He owned a building there, and I was their electrician, right? So that was our shop, and we did everything. What did Billy Graham's rock and roll place? There was the one in San Francisco and the one in New York on 2nd Avenue and 6th Street. It'll pop into my mind somewhere soon. Anyway, so that was like one of my I had little bases of operation everywhere. I worked for different people. I had my place down in Tribeca before it was Tribeca, in the Mohawk Electric building. And anyway, so we were at the meat district, right? There were 2 bars for all of the butcher guys, right? And if you went into either of those two bars and you were wearing the white coat of a butcher, you got your steak, your potato, all you could drink for free, right? And so she just loved it. And those guys loved her. So she would wear virtually her underwear underneath the white coat and just kind of flit around and everyone, ooh, baby. And she would get just floor hammered, right? She'd love to drink. And we were walking down, you know, whatever street that is right next to West Street. Um, and someone had turned out the street lights, so it was darker and dark. So I knew somebody was laying in wait, and she's drunk and and all of a sudden I start, I'm thinking about how am I going to protect my woman, and bodies are flying everywhere and smashing and crashing in dumpsters and anyway, I don't see anything, and we get to the corner and turn, to head towards the um, you know, Bank Street where I was living. And so in the morning, we wake up and the bathroom had a window that looked straight um, south, right towards the Battery, right, and the World Trade Center buildings were there, and the sun would come up, and the way the architect put the buildings, when the sun would come up, the two edges of the building was like a thermometer. It turned super gold, and the building was gray, so it was very pretty to watch the sunset and sunrise on that building. Straight from, it's like they designed it for our bathroom window. And the bathroom, as she kept the door open from the bathroom, it shined that amazing sunrise light into our bedroom, which had no windows, right? So she comes out of the sun and she's just wearing, her left underwear, and she's looking at her hands, and they're all bloody, and you know, she it looks like she was in a big badass fight. But her hands were beat up from hitting people, not from them hitting her. And anyway, I look at her and I just go, wow, I have this brilliant idea. So I said, how would you like to do a TV show where we advertise that any guy can show up, at an hour before, sign all this paperwork, and then try and beat you up. And if they die or they get their fingers broken or anything, they can't sue you or us. And so it was called Cave Girls, right? And I was working on a building for Grandpa Stoll. It was, basically a 20-story concrete and steel building, and they had done all the before us, and we had put in the risers, and we're like, I'm putting up the panels and putting all the distribution, right? And from that, his guys take it from there. Anyway, so and the union guys, that was a union job. So I was, I had a union card, so I was running the job. I was 22, maybe 21, and so I bring her and the girls up, and it was it too early in the morning when the sun, because I would get there really early before the sunrise and get everything all ready and the materials and the coffee and the donuts. When the guy showed up, I was ready to go. Everyone had their donut, had a cup of coffee. I had all the materials. I had it all laid out for them. Okay, you're going to do this. You're going to do that. You're going to get up on the genie, and everyone was happy because I just kept feeding them materials and tools, and they didn't have to do anything except what they knew how to do, and they didn't even have to think. And if they were kind of screwing it up, I said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, do a little of this." Oh, yeah, got it, great. Okay, keep going. And so that was my skill set, right? And so one morning on a Saturday, nobody was there. I had the keys, the guy who was always at the gate, I knew him. And so me and about eight pretty girls in their underwear go up there, and they got, the big high heels, and the sun comes up, and I videotape the sun coming up. They stand still, they stand still. As soon as it gets totally behind them and they're making shadows across the concrete floor, they walk slow motion, like gangsta, and they're in their own, and their big breasts are all over the place, and their cute hips are everywhere, and they just got these bikini little underpants on and high heels, and that was the opening of the show, Cave Girls, right? And we put it out there. Anybody wants to try to beat these girls, show up at Manhattan Cable on whatever street it was on. At our show was at 9. Show up at about 7:30. We're gonna make sure you can survive it, and you'll sign all this stuff, and if you die or or break things, it's not our fault. You signed away everything, and you're not going to make any money, and you have no rights to anything. And but you're going to be able to go mano a mano with this cute little naked girl. Anyway, and so I don't know. She maybe we did that 30 times over th- 3 or 4 years, and because we didn't do it every week, because you get saturated. We had other things. We had Coca Crystal, we had Annie Sprinkle. Anybody know about Annie Sprinkle? She tried to legalize prostitution in America. She was a buddy of mine from NYU. We both taking sociology. Annie's great. I think she's still out there having a good fight. So anyway, she would bring all these high level um, call girls, I guess you call them, and so executive entertainment, and they would I'd have friends. So, any of you guys want to be the prop for these girls to show how to give a good blowjob? So this is on Manhattan Cable. You could do anything you wanted. So we did that. And this other girl, Coca Crystal, she had the biggest marijuana thing going on because she had a pizza. Her daddy had a pizza parlor. She kept it, and she had great pizza. And you'd call up through this 800 number, and they would get a hold of her and with the address, and they would get the money, and the 800 number would, and she would get her cut, and she would send a pizza with an ounce of good good herb. Anyway, so she was our who's that girl, the Julia Child. She was our Julia, our marijuana Julia Childs, cookies and cakes and chickens and everything you could imagine making with, cannabis sativa. So we had the prostitute girl, blowjobs, the naked cute girl with breasts, kicking the crap out of guys, big burly, beat this bitch up, and then we had all kinds of other stuff. We had, you name it, we had it. We had, this is when the Stop Shorm campaign on. So I had my political, everyone in suits, and I'd have politicians and engineers and scientists and policemen and you name it talk. And so 10 million people would see, in New York would see that they're building this nuclear reactor like 15 miles from the Empire State Building, and it's going to blow up as soon as they turn it on. And everyone's going to die. So anyway, we did all of that for about 7 years, and it was the most fun. And at the zenith of our popularity, we would have a few million people every Thursday. Why? I mean, who wouldn't want to watch this? This cute little girl, half naked, beating the crap out of big stupid guys. I mean, she would just wail on these guys. And she was always in slow motion. And what was truly amazing, these guys would rush her, and she would just like put out a hand and lean, and they would go flying through the air and smash into the concrete wall. It was a TV studio, so we had to have one wall that we weren't going to smash a camera or lights or right. And so we had this one wall, and I put up foam on it and drew a bullseye. Ow. So yes, I know a lot about a lot of stuff, but I also had fun like that, and that's what life should be about: having fun like that. No, we still got 20%. We can still go on. Any other questions? What do you got here? Ridley Scott did Alien. Okay. Well, my opinion of those big directors goes back to Hollywood, Cameron, Spielberg, Kubrick, etc. Okay, into Freemasonry. Yes, exactly. 100%. Ding, 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 ding. Yep. That's why do you think they got the green light to do all that stuff? Now, there's the Freemasons, and what are those other guys? The guys before the Freemasons. I actually studied at their mystery school. I can't believe they're really super ancient, right? So I got involved in virtually all of these things, right? Through a number of my mentors, right? Who all they belong to all these, like George Christie. He was part of the ISIS Foundation, right? And these guys like rule the world. Somebody earlier in the show asked, so who's behind the curtain? Well, guys like the Council on Foreign Relations and things like Trilateral Commission and ISIS Foundation, other foundations like that, the Theosophical Society, and others. There are loads of them. Those are the most. There they are, and you can go Google them, but there's a ton of them that aren't as well known, right? So I studied with them all because me, I love to learn stuff. I love to have a great teacher. That's what I miss the most. I'm now in the position of having to be the teacher, and I'm not that disciplined. So I'm a griot. I'm Sensei Al Bob. What does sensei mean in Japanese? Teacher, simple. It's no big deal. But being a teacher in Japanese, it's a big deal. It's like one of the highest level honorable positions you can have in that society is to be a teacher. But my sensei, who was training me to be a sensei, he said, Al, I think you're just going to be a griot, because he was a Greek scholar, even though he was Japanese. He was an everything scholar. This guy was. So I basically follow, I am God's doula. And what is doula? In Greek, doula means slave to the spirit, right? So that's me. I'm slave to the spirit. Right? And that spirit is love's co-creation. That's what God is. Now, all these churches that I'm part of, when I keep, they said, stop talking about that. We're scripturally based. I said, well, read your scriptures, boys. So yes. And the movies have always been esoteric. I mean, look, they moved from Long Island, right? That's where movies first started being made, because after World War I, they had all these big hangars that had skylights. So they're big open spaces that you could build sets in, and there was light coming in from the ceiling. So that's why they started movies, And Edison was on the East Coast. He wasn't a West Coast guy. But by early 20s, they moved to California because it was always sunny there, and there was loads of cheap real estate, and studios got built. And that's why Hollywood, just that sign appeared. You know what the Hollywood means? All magic wands are made out of Hollywood. So it's very Harry Potter. So how we doing for battery here? Still hanging in there. So come on, more questions, more stuff. We can discuss on. This is what I like. I like having a chat. Read my comments. Let's read more of the comments. Let's see. 1890s, sure, but what about mud flood? Okay, we got into mud flood. That's one of a story about prison. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm glad you like my stories. Please reply if you see this now. Gratitude. Okay. Mr. Rubis, I love you. I love everyone who chats and sends me comments, right? So what else do we have here? 4 comments. What's the other comments? 2 replies. I replied. Let's see. What did I reply? Just got your message. I'm glad you enjoyed the show. I'm going to try and do a little more. Okay. Let's see. Thanks, Al, brother. Okay. And everyone at the cadre, we are family, right? We are all our relations, right? That's a very first person's kind of motif. So what else? We got probably 15 minutes. Come on, guys. Let's have some more chatting here. So it is pretty interesting. I mean, I've been in towns near Mississippi and up the Mississippi where I've seen buildings, and this was in the 60s, that had the mud line. So this one concrete building, and it had a mud line like 12 feet up. And I asked somebody, "What is that?" Because I kind of heard about the mud flood. And all you guys, Mr. Ford, Fort, Ford, right? All that stuff I read from Mr. Google. Go to Mr. Google and look and start in the rabbit hole there. And there were a couple of TV shows. I don't know where they were on, but one was about the librarian, right? That was about Mr. Ford. And then there was another one like, Area 51 is supposed to have, one of the last Indiana Jones ones was, in the 50s, and they're looking for the crystal heads and the flying saucer in South America. And it starts out with the commies and the Russian doctor girl in her riding crop and boots, and I want to know, right? And when I saw that movie, I said, I don't want to be that girl. I really like being in that environment. I don't want to be that girl. I don't want to be in charge. I don't want to be responsible. The guy in Close Encounters who was the French translator for the French guy, who was a French director, right? Steven had a guy crush on that French guy, so that's where they put him in the movie. And back in the day of the flying saucer, there was a French guy, and all of that, Close Encounters was real. All of that stuff freaking happened. You go look at the aliens came down and visited Ike out there at Area 51 or Edwards or someplace out there, and Gordon Cooper, right? That guy was, one of the, original 7, right? And he took the last, um, Mercury space capsule up there, right? And, Glenn went around 3 times. Cooper was up there for 3 days, right? So he went around the Earth, every hour. So that's 24 times 3. So that's like about 80 times he went around the Earth, right? And he saw, the stories he tells. Woo-wee. So he was really smart guy. Really, I mean, everyone, you see the Right Stuff movie and they show Gordy, and they play him like some kind of cowboy, but he was the most educated. He was the most engineered guy there. He was aerospace engineer. He was everything engineer you could be. He was the rocket scientist of those 7 guys. The rest, he just wanted to run for office until he realized he was a Marine. He did that flight in a Corsair that zipped across America at faster than the speed of sound. That was the last gunslinger naval. After that craft, all of the naval aircraft were missiles. Right? Everything was guided. My opinion, those big vectors. Okay, we got that. This Mr. Babylon audio is. Oh, my hand is over the microphone. Sorry, I did that. And thanks for telling me. Whenever I do something like that, you should tell me. And Fish gave me this little table that fits on the steering wheel, but this car, it doesn't do too well. It does no worries. But thanks. I'm all about, if someone can tell me, yo, what you doing? Oh, why you know, right? Just keep me informed. Keep me in the loop, right? Because I have no idea what I'm doing, right? So here we are. So this is one of these interesting times because everything is coming together. Because basically, 2012, you should go read Whitley Strieber's book called 2012, right? He was a guy who did the first abduction book that was well written that people liked, and then they made it into a movie. And he wrote tons of other books. So his book, 2012, great book. Another book that's a great book of his is a book called Gray. And then the other book that I really like was a book he did with Art Bell called The Day After, meaning right now there's the world's biggest, it's basically the size of Rhode Island, an iceberg thing in and it's hit where all those little spirals that are zipping in the water that's sucking all the warmth up from Africa across, South America, across the Caribbean, across, Mexico, and then across, along up the East Coast, and then zipping across to Ireland and England, and then up across, Denmark and Norway and Sweden, and then into Russia, right? If those little swirly guys stop, the average temperature will drop 100 degrees Celsius, meaning everything that was ice up there will be ice in New Jersey, ice in, you know, Ireland, England, and they kind of had a taste of it in the 1880s when Krakatoa blew up, right? And it blew so much crap into the super upper atmosphere, it it covered the whole Earth, and it got cold by 20 degrees. So they actually, the Thames in England in July froze. Go look that one up. And so there have been some really amazing things going on this planet because this planet is not static. It doesn't stay the same way. Right now, we've had a good million years of being in a Goldilocks. Before this place has been either a frozen ice ball or a gooey, you know, you know what the forests of Brazil are like. Just the Amazon. This place was either the Amazon or an ice ball, right? And this is one of the only times in about 10 years it was Goldilocks land. I mean, everything was pretty. We could grow crops, we could feed the peeps, we could eat. Culturally evolve, and we're now at this place where we're either going to blow ourselves off the face of the earth, and because we have, they have the technology. Like all of the forest fires are being done by DEWs, direct energy weapons that come straight from Mr. Knuckles identifying zero point energy. Having a thing the size of a softball making enough electricity that that all the Hoover Dam does, or twice, so unlimited amounts. So you can do whatever you want when you have that kind of power. Then you have Mr. Tesla's being able to transmit that power anywhere on the planet. And that's why nuclear submarines, they don't have reactors, because if you had a reactor on one of those submarines, you basically would be saying, "Hey, here we are," because they go hang out up there in the North or South Pole where the water's really cold. I have this reactor that's really, if it was a nuclear reactor, if it was fissioning away, it would be making a ton of heat, like 2,500 degrees. So how are they going to cool that down? They're going to take that cold water and zip it past the core and then dump it out in the ocean. And what would you need? Just a infrared satellite up there in that neck of the woods? Oh, there they are. Bang. Right. So that's why they don't do that. They call them nuclear submarines because they have nuclear weapons. Right. And where are these submarines built? In Groton, Connecticut, in a place called the Electric Boat Company, not the Nuclear Boat Company. Now, don't believe a word I say. These are just fig Newtons of my imagination, right? So, because I'm a griot, I tell you stories, right? So, but you're supposed to look them up, right? You're supposed to see what they are. So then you can go, uh-oh, or what should I do about this, right? I'm giving you that's what a griot does. Tells you a story that gives you the opportunity to kind of change your mind, to like, ooh, I never thought of that. Ooh, that sounds interesting. Ooh, I might like to do that. Ooh, I'd like to change my life. I want to stop being an asshole. I will start helping others at doing this. Okay. That's why I do this. Let's see. No worries. Okay. That's my middle name. No worries. How we doing with our battery? Still? Oh no. I'm down to I gotta go, guys. Well, this has been fun. I will try tomorrow morning and tomorrow afternoon to come visit, and we'll go from there because the thing's about to crash. So, and it hates it. It takes 2 days to get up um, into the channel if I let it die that way. So I'm gonna leave right now. Love you guys. Remember, thumbs up. Remember, comments. Remember, subscribing. Get more people to watch this thing. Let's get maybe, above 1,000 subscribers. That might be fun. Okay. Love you guys.